The galaxy had seen many wonders. Stars that sang in frequencies only the ancient Vethkai could hear. Planets made entirely of crystal. Civilizations that had existed for millions of years, building empires across thousands of star systems. And then there were the humans. Captain Yuki Tanaka stood on the bridge of her ship, the Persistent Dawn, and watched the chaos unfold through the viewport. She was 52 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and lines around her eyes from too many years of squinting at broken navigation screens. Her ship was a cargo hauler, nothing special. It moved freight from one station to another. That was all. But today, everything had changed. The Hollow had come to Kepler Reach. Tanaka had heard stories about the Hollow, of course. Everyone had. It was the thing that ate stars. The darkness that swallowed worlds. For thousands of years, the great civilizations of the Galactic Concord had fought against it. They had fleets of warships with weapons that could crack moons. They had psionic warriors who could move objects with their minds. They had technology so advanced that humans could barely understand it. None of it mattered. The Hollow consumed everything. On the screen, Tanaka watched the Concord's grand fleet engage the approaching darkness. Ships that were kilometers long fired weapons of pure energy into the void. For a moment, she dared to hope. Then the darkness swallowed them. One by one, the mighty warships simply vanished. No explosions. No debris. They were there, and then they were not. Mother of God, whispered Rosa Delgado, the ship's chief engineer. She was a short woman with oil-stained hands and a mind that could fix anything. Right now, she looked pale. How many ships? Asked Dr. Samuel Okonkwo, the xenobiologist who had been hitching a ride to a research station. He was a tall man from Nigeria, with curious eyes that were always studying something. 347, said Tanaka quietly. The entire Kepler defense fleet, gone in less than an hour. The bridge fell silent. In the corner, Private First Class Jinsu Park gripped his rifle tighter. He was only 23, a Marine assigned to protect the cargo. He had joined the military to pay for his mother's medical treatment. Back on Earth, he had never expected to see anything like this. The communication system crackled. A transmission came through on all channels. Attention all vessels. This is High Commander Zethrani of the Galactic Concord. The defense fleet has fallen. 12 inhabited worlds are in the path of the Hollow. We require all available ships for immediate evacuation. This is not a request. Tanaka looked at her crew. The Persistent Dawn was designed to carry machine parts and food supplies. It had no weapons. Its shields were barely strong enough to handle a solar flare. But it had cargo space. Lots of it. You heard the commander, she said. Set course for Kepler IV. We're going to carry some passengers. The next 6 hours were a nightmare. The Persistent Dawn made 3 trips between Kepler 4 and the safe zone, each time filling its cargo holds with refugees. Families clutched their children. Old people carried small bags containing everything they had left. Some of them had never seen a human before. They looked at Tanaka and her crew with strange expressions, as if they could not understand why these small, fragile creatures were helping them. On the 4th trip, everything went wrong. The Hollow had moved faster than anyone predicted. As the Persistent Dawn lifted off from the planet's surface, the darkness appeared on the horizon. It did not look like anything. It was simply an absence, a place where the stars stopped existing. Captain, we have a problem, said Delgado from the engine room. The atmospheric thrusters took damage during landing. We're at 60% power. Tanaka did the math in her head. 60% power meant they could not outrun the Hollow. Not with a full cargo hold of refugees. How many people do we have on board? She asked. 412, said Okonkwo. Mostly children and elderly. The hollow crept closer. Already, the planet's atmosphere was beginning to distort at the edges, like reality itself was coming undone. On the communication channel, Tanaka heard the voice of a Concord observer, a Vethkai named Serintha, who had been monitoring the evacuation. Human vessel Persistent Dawn, you must leave now. You cannot save them all. If you wait any longer, you will be consumed. Tanaka looked at the sensor readings. There was another transport on the surface, 15 kilometers away. Its engines had failed. Inside were 300 more refugees. Delgado, she said slowly, if I gave you 10 minutes, could you get us to 80% power? A pause. Then, maybe, if I do some things that would definitely void our warranty. Do it. Tanaka turned to the helm. Take us down. We're picking up that transport. The Vethkai observer's voice was sharp with confusion. Captain Tanaka, that is not logical. You are risking 400 lives to possibly save 300 more. The mathematics do not support this action. Jinsu Park, who had been silent through all of this, suddenly spoke. With respect, sir, we don't really care about the mathematics. The Persistent Dawn descended back toward the dying planet. Behind them, the hollow spread across the sky like a living shadow. Reality twisted and bent. Some of the refugees began to scream. But the humans did not stop. Delgado worked miracles in the engine room, rerouting power from systems that probably needed it, welding connections that should not have held, and swearing in 3 languages. Okonkwo helped coordinate the transfer of refugees from the stranded transport, moving people with a calm efficiency that surprised even him. Jinsu carried children on his shoulders, making 3 trips across the dangerous gap between the ships. And Tanaka flew. She pushed the Persistent Dawn harder than it had ever been pushed. The hull groaned. Warning lights flashed on every console. The hollow was so close now that she could feel it, a cold pressure against her mind, whispering that it would be easier to just stop fighting. She ignored it. With 712 souls on board, the Persistent Dawn tore through the planet's atmosphere and raced toward the stars. Behind them, Kepler-4 ceased to exist. The hollow swallowed it whole, leaving nothing but empty space. But the ship was clear. On the Concord observation station, Serintha watched the human vessel emerge from the darkness. Her ancient eyes, which had seen civilizations rise and fall, were wide with something she had not felt in centuries. Surprise. Impossible, she whispered to herself. They should not have survived. But they had. Not because they were powerful. Not because they had superior technology. They had survived because a tired cargo captain had decided that mathematics were not the only thing that mattered. In the cargo hold of the Persistent Dawn, surrounded by refugees who had just lost their world, Jinsu Park sat down on a crate and finally allowed himself to breathe. A small child, a Zethrani girl with 4 arms and skin like blue silk, crawled over and sat next to him. Were you scared? She asked. Jinsu thought about it. Yeah, he admitted. I was really scared. And why did you come back for us? He looked at the child, at her wide eyes full of confusion and hope, and he gave her the only answer he had. Because someone had to. Somewhere in the void, the hollow continued its endless hunger. It had consumed countless worlds and countless species. It did not understand fear, or hope, or sacrifice. But for the first time in millennia, something had escaped its grasp. And that was only the beginning. 3 days after escaping Kepler-4, the Persistent Dawn found itself trapped again. Captain Tanaka had been trying to reach the safe zone, but the hollow moved in ways that made no sense. It did not expand like a normal phenomenon. It jumped. It shifted. It appeared where it should not be docked. Now the darkness surrounded them on 3 sides, and it was getting closer. "How long do we have?" Tanaka asked, her voice calm despite the fear in her chest. Dr. Okonkwo studied his instruments. "At current expansion rate, approximately 4 hours before we are completely enclosed. And our engines?" Delgado's voice came over the intercom, tired and strained. "Captain, I've done everything I can. We can make about 70% of required speed to break through. It's not enough." In the cargo hold, 700 refugees waited in silence. They had survived the death of their world only to face death again. Some of them prayed to gods that Tanaka had never heard of. Some just held their families close. Jinsu stood guard at the cargo bay door, his rifle useless against an enemy that had no body to shoot. He felt helpless, and he hated that feeling. On the bridge, the Vethkai observer Sarinta sat in a corner, watching the humans with unreadable eyes. She had been assigned to document the evacuation efforts. Now she was documenting something else entirely. "You should prepare for the end," she said quietly. "The Hollow has consumed species far greater than yours. There is no shame in accepting fate." Tanaka turned to look at her. "With respect, observer, I don't believe in fate." "What do you believe in?" "I believe that my engineer hasn't tried everything yet." "Rosa, Captain?" Delgado's voice was exhausted. "What if we didn't need to outrun it? What if we just needed to confuse it?" There was a long pause. Then Delgado laughed, a sound that seemed wrong in the current situation. "That's crazy. You're talking about making our energy signature random. It would be like trying to walk by having a seizure. Can you do it?" Another pause, longer this time. "Maybe, but it would require disconnecting half our safety systems. If anything goes wrong, the reactor could explode." Sarinta's eyes widened. "You would risk destroying your own ship." Tanaka smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Observer, if we do nothing, we die anyway. I'd rather die trying something stupid than die doing nothing at all." Delgado got to work. She crawled through the ship's maintenance tunnels, disconnecting systems that had warning labels in 14 languages. She rerouted power through pathways that the ship's designers had never intended. She created feedback loops that made the engineering computer display error messages in pure gibberish. When she was done, the persistent dawn no longer had a stable energy signature. It flickered and jumped and changed from moment to moment, like a candle flame in a hurricane. "Okay, Captain," she said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Our ship is now officially the stupidest thing in the galaxy. Let's see if it works." Tanaka pushed the engines to full power. The persistent dawn lurched forward, heading straight for the narrowest gap in the surrounding darkness. The Hollow reacted immediately. It began to close in, the void spreading like hungry fingers reaching for prey. But something strange happened. Every time the darkness tried to focus on the ship, the energy signature changed. It was like trying to grab smoke. "It's working," Okonkwo said, his voice filled with wonder. "The Hollow seems to target based on consistent energy patterns. We're too chaotic for it to lock onto. But they were not safe yet." The Hollow was adaptive. It began to change its approach, trying to surround them completely instead of targeting them directly. "We need something else," Tanaka muttered. "Something to distract it." Okonkwo had been studying his readings with intense focus. Now he looked up with an expression of sudden understanding. "Captain, I have a theory. The Hollow doesn't just consume matter. It consumes intention, fear. The more afraid a species is, the faster it gets consumed. So we need to stop being afraid? No, fear is natural. But perhaps we can change the nature of what we're broadcasting." He paused. "The Hollow expects prey to scream. What if we did something else entirely?" Tanaka understood immediately. She reached for the ship's communication system and connected it to the external speakers. Then she accessed the music library. a collection of old Earth songs that she had carried with her across 100-star systems. The first notes of Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen blasted into the void at maximum volume. Sarintha stared at the captain as if she had gone insane. "What are you doing?" "Making noise," Tanaka replied. "The Hollow has spent millennia consuming civilizations that feared it, that screamed at it, that ran from it in terror. It has never encountered something that responded to existential horror with a classic rock anthem." In the cargo hold, Jinsu heard the music and started to laugh. He could not help it. The situation was so absurd, so completely insane, that laughter was the only response that made sense. The refugees looked at him with confusion, but soon some of them started to smile too. They did not know the song, but they could feel its energy, its defiance. The Hollow hesitated. For the first time in its ancient existence, it encountered something it did not understand. The prey was not screaming. It was not running. It was making organized patterns of sound that conveyed emotions the Hollow could not process. And hesitation was enough. The persistent dawn burst through the gap in the darkness and emerged into clear space. Behind them, the Hollow continued its slow expansion, but it did not follow. It could not understand what had just happened. On the bridge, Tanaka let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like hours. Her hands were shaking. She gripped the console to steady herself. "We made it," Delgado said over the intercom, her voice filled with disbelief. "Captain, we actually made it." Sarintha approached Tanaka slowly. The ancient Vethkai looked at the human with new eyes. "I have observed many species face the Hollow," she said. "The Zethrani fought with discipline. The Morvith tried to reason with it. My own people attempted to transcend it through meditation. All of them failed. And us? You played music at it." Sarintha shook her head. "Your ship is held together with improvised repairs and desperate hope. Your tactics violate every principle of rational combat. You should be dead 10 times over." Tanaka shrugged. "We're human. We're used to things that should kill us." But Okonkwo was not celebrating. He was staring at his instruments with an intense expression. "Captain," he said slowly, "I recorded everything during our passage through the Hollow's edge. And I found something. What is it? The Hollow isn't natural. It was created. There's a pattern to its expansion, a source point at its center." He looked up, his eyes bright with scientific excitement and terrible knowledge. "Someone built this thing. And if someone built it, it means there's something at its heart that can be destroyed." The bridge fell silent. Outside the viewport, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Hollow continued to spread, consuming everything in its path. But now they had hope. Not much. Just a fragment of data that suggested the impossible might be possible. Jinsu climbed up from the cargo hold and joined them on the bridge. He had heard the last part of the conversation. "So there's a way to stop it?" he asked. "Maybe," Okonkwo said. "But reaching the center would require traveling through the Hollow for hours. Maybe days. No one has ever survived more than a few minutes." Jinsu looked at Tanaka. The captain looked at her crew. They all knew what this meant. Someone would have to try. "Wow," Tanaka said finally. "I guess we need to talk to the Concord. They should know about this." She set a course for Axis Prime, the central station of the Galactic Concord. Behind them, the void waited hungrily. The humans had survived twice now. But the real test was still ahead. Axis Prime was the largest structure humans had ever seen. It was a station built by the Galactic Concord over 50,000 years ago, a sphere of metal and crystal floating in the heart of protected space. Inside lived representatives of over 200 species, beings of such power and age that humans felt like children standing among giants. Dr. Okonkwo, presented his findings to the High Council. The chamber was vast, filled with creatures that defied description. The crystalline Morvith shimmered like living diamonds. The insectoid Zethrani clicked their mandibles in patterns that their translators converted to speech. The ancient Vethkai sat in their elevated seats, their 4 eyes watching everything with patient wisdom. "The data is clear," Okonkwo said, his voice steady despite the weight of so many gazes upon him. "The hollow has a center, a source. We detected a consistent energy signature buried deep within it. If we can reach that source and destroy it, the hollow should collapse." The High Commander of the Zethrani leaned forward. "And how do you propose we reach this center? Our ships cannot survive within the hollow for more than 3 standard hours. Our calculations suggest the journey to the center would take 19 hours. "I don't have an answer for that," Okonkwo admitted. "I'm just a scientist. I'm telling you what the data shows." The council debated for 6 hours. They discussed technology, strategy, and history. They considered every option their advanced civilizations could offer. In the end, they reached a terrible conclusion. They had the weapons to destroy the core. They had the ships to make the journey. But they did not have the crews. An elderly Vethkai named Kethmara explained it to the human delegation. "The hollow attacks the mind. It finds your fears and makes them real. It stretches time so that hours feel like centuries. Our species cannot endure this. The Zethrani lose their hive-mind connection and go insane. The Morvith experience their crystalline structure shattering under psychological pressure. We Vethkai perceive time differently. 19 hours inside the hollow would feel like an eternity of torture. What about other species?" Tanaka asked. "We have tested many. All fail. The more advanced the consciousness, the more vulnerable it becomes." Kethmara paused, her ancient eyes settling on the humans. "But your species is different. You have no psionic abilities for the hollow to target. Your minds are chaotic and resistant to focused attacks. And you have already demonstrated an ability to survive conditions that should be fatal." The implication was clear. The council was asking humans to volunteer. How many ships would be needed? Tanaka asked. 3, for redundancy. Each ship would require a full crew. Approximately 300 personnel per vessel. 900 people. 900 humans who would have to travel through a dimension of nightmares for 19 hours, facing psychological attacks that had broken species far more powerful than them. "This is not an order," Kethmara said carefully. "The Concord does not have the authority to command humans. We can only ask." Tanaka looked at her crew. Okonkwo, Delgado, Jinsu. They had already faced the hollow twice. They knew what it meant. "We'll need to talk to Earth," she said. The call went out across human space. The message was simple. Volunteers needed for a suicide mission to save the galaxy. No promises of survival. No guarantees of success. The response surprised everyone. Within 3 days, over 12,000 humans had volunteered. Not soldiers. Not heroes. Just ordinary people who had decided that someone had to do something. A woman named Sarah Chen was a doctor from a colony on Mars. She was 61 years old and had spent her life treating patients. She volunteered because she had grandchildren who deserved to grow up in a galaxy that existed. A man named Dmitry Volkov was an engineer from a mining station in the asteroid belt. He had no family, no special ties to anyone. He volunteered because he wanted to see what was at the center of the hollow. He was curious, and curiosity had always driven him forward. A young woman named Priya Sharma was a poet. She wrote verses about the spaces between stars and the beauty of existence. She volunteered because she wanted to witness something no one had ever seen, even if it killed her. And there were hundreds more. Teachers and farmers. Mechanics and cooks. Old people and young people. People with everything to lose and people with nothing left. The Concorde observed this with confusion. When the Zethrani faced extinction, they calculated probabilities and made logical choices. When the Morveth faced threats, they sought consensus and acted as one. But humans volunteered as individuals, each for their own reasons, none of which followed any pattern the aliens could understand. Jinsu was among the volunteers. He had already seen the Hollow twice. He knew what it could do, but he also knew what it felt like to save someone, to carry a child through danger, to watch hope return to frightened eyes. The night before the mission, he called his mother on Earth. The transmission delay was long, but he waited. "Jinsu," she said when her face appeared on the screen. "You don't have to do this. I know, Mom. You've already done enough. You've already been brave. I know." He smiled, trying to look more confident than he felt. "But if I don't go, someone else has to. Someone else's son or daughter. I'm already here. I'm already part of this." His mother was quiet for a long time. Then she wiped her eyes and nodded. "Your father would be proud of you," she said softly. "So am I." On Axis Prime, the 3 ships were prepared. They were human-built vessels, modified with Concorde technology, but maintained by human engineers. Delgado had personally inspected every system. "They're good ships," she told Tanaka. "Not pretty, but solid. They'll hold together. And if they don't?" Delgado shrugged. "Then I'll fix them with whatever we have. Wire, tape, hope. The usual." Serintha, the Vethkai observer, approached the group. She had requested permission to join the mission, despite the risks to her own sanity. "I want to understand," she said when Tanaka asked why. "I have watched humans for 3 days now. You make no sense to me. You fear death, yet you volunteer for it. You love your families, yet you leave them. You know the odds are against you, yet you laugh and make jokes." She paused. "I need to see how this ends. I need to understand what you are." Okonkwo gave her a sad smile. "We're not anything special, observer. We're just humans. We do what we have to do because someone has to do it." The morning of the launch, all 900 volunteers gathered in the station's main hangar. They were a strange sight. People of all ages, all backgrounds, all appearances. They wore different clothes and spoke different languages. They prayed to different gods or no gods at all. But they were all there. They had all chosen to be there. Captain Tanaka stood before them. She was not a speaker or a leader of great armies. She was a cargo hauler captain who had stumbled into something bigger than herself. "I'm not going to lie to you," she said. "Most of us probably won't survive this. The Hollow has killed millions. It has destroyed civilizations that lasted longer than our entire species has existed." She looked at the faces before her. Some were afraid. Some were calm. Some were crying silently. All of them were listening. "But we're going anyway. Not because we're brave. Not because we're special. But because someone has to. And we decided it would be us." She raised her hand in a simple salute. "Let's go save the galaxy." The 3 ships launched from Axis Prime. Their names were painted on their hulls in human script. Persistent Dawn, Eternal Horizon, and Last Chance. As they entered the coordinates for the heart of the Hollow, the Concorde observers watched in silence. In all their years, they had never seen anything like this. 900 ordinary people, flying into the void. Within the first hour, all communication was lost. The galaxy waited. Against the Void, The Extraordinary Feats of Ordinary Humans, Part 4. 19 hours. The moment they entered the Hollow, everything changed. The stars disappeared. The sensors stopped working. The walls of reality seemed to bend and twist, showing impossible geometries that hurt to look at. Colors appeared that had no names. Sounds emerged that had no source, and the attacks began. On the bridge of the persistent dawn, Jin-Soo suddenly saw his father standing before him. His father had died 8 years ago, slowly and painfully, from a disease that ate away at his lungs. Jin-Soo had held his hand at the end. He had never forgotten the look in his father's eyes. Now his father stood before him, pale and thin and accusing. "You weren't there enough," the vision said. "You joined the military and left us. You left your mother alone." Jin-Soo gripped his rifle until his knuckles went white. He knew this wasn't real. He knew the hollow was reaching into his mind, binding his guilt and his grief, but it still hurt. Beside him, a crew member named Marcus dropped to his knees, covering his ears. He was seeing something too, something that made him scream. "It's not real," Jin-Soo shouted. "Whatever you're seeing, it's not real." Across the ship, similar scenes played out. People faced their worst fears, their dead loved ones, their deepest shamas. The hollow pulled everything out and made it visible. Sarintha, the Vethkai observer, sat in the corner of the bridge, her 4 eyes wide with horror. She was experiencing something far worse than the humans. To her ancient consciousness, time had slowed to a crawl. Every minute felt like an hour. Every hour felt like a day. "I cannot endure this," she whispered. "It is too much." Dr. Okonkwo knelt beside her. His own face was pale, and sweat covered his forehead. He was seeing his own fears too, but he pushed them aside and focused on the alien. "Breathe," he said. "Look at me. Focus on my voice. Your voice is..." "So slow," Sarintha gasped. "Everything is so slow." "I know, but we're still moving forward. Every second that passes is a second closer to the center. You can do this. We can do this together." 3 hours passed. On the eternal horizon, the reactor began to fail. Captain Tanaka received a distress call through static-filled communication. The voice of Captain Reyes, commander of the eternal horizon, was barely audible. "Our main reactor is destabilizing. We don't have time to repair it. We're going to lose power in less than 30 minutes. Can you transfer to escape pods?" Tanaka asked. "Negative. The escape pods won't survive in the hollow. Anyone who leaves the ship dies instantly." Tanaka closed her eyes. 300 people. 300 volunteers who had known the risks but came anyway. "Understood, Captain Reyes. Is there anything we can do?" A pause. Then Reyes spoke again, his voice steady despite what was about to happen. "Just keep going. Don't stop for us. Get to the center. Make this mean something. We will. Reyes out." 37 minutes later, the eternal horizon went silent. No explosion. No final transmission. Just silence, as 300 humans vanished into the void. On the persistent dawn, the crew did not have time to mourn. They marked the moment with 10 minutes of silence, then returned to their stations. There would be time for grief later. If there was a later, 7 hours in. The hollow had found new ways to attack. It stopped showing individual fears and started showing collective ones. The walls displayed images of Earth being consumed. Children crying out for parents who would never come. The extinction of everything humanity had ever built. The mood on the ship grew dark. People stopped talking. Some stopped eating. The weight of what they were facing pressed down on everyone. It was Rosa Delgado who broke the silence. She was in the engine room, fighting to keep the systems running. Her hands were burned from touching overheated components. Her eyes were red from exhaustion. But she started singing. It was an old song from her grandmother's village in Mexico. A simple melody about working in the fields, about the sun rising and setting, about ordinary life. At first, only the people near her could hear. But then someone else joined in, singing a different song from a different place. Then another, and another. Through the ship's internal communication, music spread. Work songs and love songs. Drinking songs and lullabies. Songs in Spanish and Mandarin and Yoruba and English and a dozen other languages. The Hollow had never encountered anything like this. Its prey was supposed to scream. Its prey was supposed to break. Instead, these small creatures were making organized sounds that expressed emotions it could not understand. Hope, defiance, solidarity. The attacks weakened slightly, not because the Hollow had given up, but because it could not focus on minds that were so unpredictable, so chaotic, so stubbornly alive. 12 hours in, the Last Chance suffered critical damage. A section of the hull had collapsed, exposing 3 decks to the Hollow's influence. 52 people died instantly. The rest of the ship was slowly being torn apart. Captain Morrison made a decision. She ordered the remaining crew to transfer to the Persistent Dawn using emergency bridges between the ships. "What about you?" Tanaka asked over the communication. "Someone has to keep the engines running until the last person is off. Otherwise, the ships drift apart and everyone dies. There must be another way. There isn't, and we're running out of time." The transfer took 2 hours. 218 people crossed from the Last Chance to the Persistent Dawn. The Hollow attacked constantly, trying to stop them. 3 people fell into the void during the crossing. Their names were remembered. Rosa Delgado was the last person to cross. She had stayed behind to help Morrison keep the engines running. "Come on, Captain," she said. "I can hold it from here." Morrison shook her head. "The bridge controls are failing. If I leave, the ship falls apart immediately. Then I'll stay with you." "No." Morrison pushed Delgado toward the transfer bridge. "You're needed over there. Tanaka's ship won't survive without you. Go." Delgado wanted to argue, but she knew Morrison was right. With tears in her eyes, she crossed the bridge to the Persistent Dawn. Behind her, Captain Elena Morrison stood alone on her dying ship. She was a grandmother from a small colony world. She had volunteered because she believed the younger generation deserved a future. Her final transmission was simple: "Tell my grandchildren I love them." Morrison out. The Last Chance went silent. 16 hours in. The Persistent Dawn was now carrying over 500 people, far more than it was designed for. The life support systems strained. The engines groaned. But the ship kept moving. Okonkwo never stopped monitoring his instruments. At hour 17, he finally saw what they had been looking for. "Captain," he said, his voice filled with wonder and terror. "I found it. The center. It's directly ahead." Tanaka looked at the screen. There, in the heart of the Hollow, was something that should not exist. A structure made of materials that predated the current universe. Ancient beyond measure. The source of everything. And beside it, a signal. A life sign. "There's someone there," Okonkwo whispered. "Something alive." The Hollow seemed to sense their approach. The attacks intensified. Reality twisted more violently. Some of the crew began to hallucinate constantly, unable to tell what was real and what was not. But they kept going. At hour 18, the Persistent Dawn entered the central chamber. What they saw there silenced everyone. It was a tomb. A massive structure filled with the remains of a civilization that had died so long ago that even their dust had turned to shadows. And at its center, connected to a machine that pulsed with dark energy, sat a single being. The architect. It was old. Impossibly old. Its body had partially merged with the machine. Its eyes, when they opened, held the weight of millions of years. "You came," it said, its voice echoing through the ship without using any normal means of communication. After all this time, someone finally came. Jinsu gripped his weapon. He knew it would be useless against this thing, but it made him feel better to hold something. "Are you the one who created the Hollow?" Tanaka asked. The architect smiled, and that smile was the saddest thing any of them had ever seen. I am the last of my kind. We created this weapon to save ourselves from extinction. Instead, it consumed everything we loved. It paused. I have waited here for eons, hoping someone would come to end it. To end me. It looked at the humans with ancient, tired eyes. And now you are here. Small, fragile creatures who should not have survived the journey. But you did. Its gaze settled on Jinsu. You are the one, it said. You are the one who will finish this. Jinsu felt his blood turn cold. What do you mean? The machine that sustains the hollow requires a living consciousness to destroy it. Someone must reach the core and trigger the collapse. The architect's voice was gentle now. You will not survive the process. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what was being asked. Jinsu stepped forward. Tell me what to do. Jinsu, no, Tanaka said. Captain. He turned to look at her. His face was calm. This is why I came. This is why any of us came. To finish it. He looked around at his crewmates. The people he had shared this journey with. The people who had sung with him, laughed with him, faced the darkness with him. Take care of my mom, he said. Tell her I wasn't scared. Tell her I chose this. He walked toward the core. Jinsu walked through the ancient corridors of the architect's tomb. The walls whispered with the memories of a dead civilization. Shadows moved at the edges of his vision, showing him glimpses of a world that had existed long before Earth was born. Behind him, Captain Tanaka's voice came through his communication device, growing fainter with each step. Jinsu, please. There has to be another way. There isn't, Captain. He kept walking. His leg was broken, damaged during the final approach to the center. Each step sent pain shooting through his body. He ignored it. You know there isn't. The core lay ahead. It was a sphere of pure energy, connected to the architect's ancient form, through cables made of something that looked like frozen lightning. The machine hummed with a sound that felt older than time itself. The architect watched him approach. You are brave, little creature, it said. In all my eons of existence, I have consumed millions of species. I have watched civilizations that spanned galaxies fall into my hollow. None of them came to the center. None of them faced me as you do now. Jinsu stopped before the core. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. He was terrified. He did not want to die. He was only 23 years old. He had so much he still wanted to do, so much life he still wanted to live. But he thought of his mother. He thought of the child he had carried on the evacuation ship. He thought of all the worlds that would die if the hollow continued. Why did you create it? He asked the architect. Why did you make something so terrible? The architect's ancient eyes closed for a moment. We were dying. Our sun was fading, and we did not have the technology to escape. In desperation, we created a weapon that could consume energy from other dimensions. We thought it would save us. It opened its eyes again, and Jinsu saw something he did not expect: regret. Instead, it consumed everything. Our world, our people, our children. The architect's voice trembled. I am the last. I survived by merging with the machine, but I lost my ability to stop it. For millions of years, I have watched my creation destroy everything. I cannot describe the guilt. Jinsu felt something shift in his chest. This being was a monster. It had killed countless innocents, but it was also a victim of its own creation, trapped for eons with nothing but regret. I'm sorry, Jinsu said, and he meant it. The architect looked at him with surprise. You pity me? After everything I have done? You made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But you didn't want this. Jinsu stepped closer to the core. And now we can end it together. On the persistent dawn, the crew watched through Jinsu's camera feed. 500 people held their breath as a young Marine with a broken leg prepared to sacrifice himself. Rosa Delgado was crying. She had lost 2 captains today, and now she was about to lose this boy who had become like family to all of them. Dr. Okonkwo held Sarintha's hand. The Vethkai observer was trembling, her ancient eyes fixed on the screen. She finally understood what humans were. They were not special. They were not powerful. They were just creatures who refused to give up, even when all logic said they should. Captain Tanaka's hand hovered over the communication button. She wanted to say something. She wanted to find words that could express what Jinsu meant, what all the volunteers meant, what this moment meant for the entire galaxy. But words were not enough. They never were. Jinsu placed his hand on the core. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. Energy surged through his body, connecting him to the machine that sustained the hollow. He could feel it now, the vast network of darkness that spread across the galaxy. He could feel every world it had consumed, every life it had ended, and he could feel the weakness at its center. The flaw that the architect could not reach, but that Jinsu, with his small and fragile human body, could touch. "Goodbye, Mom," he whispered. He triggered the collapse. The hollow began to die from the heart of the darkness. A wave of energy spread outward. The void that had consumed stars and worlds began to fold in on itself. Reality reasserted itself in places where it had been absent for millennia. On the persistent dawn, the crew felt the ship shake as space itself changed around them. Alarms blared. Systems failed. "We need to move now," Delgado shouted from the engine room. Tanaka grabbed the controls. The ship's engines were barely functional, but she pushed them to their absolute limit. Behind them, the hollow collapsed faster and faster, chasing them like a wave of returning reality. For a terrible moment, it looked like they would not make it. Then the stars appeared. The persistent dawn burst out of the collapsing void and into clear space. Around them, the darkness folded in on itself until there was nothing left but normal, empty space. The hollow was gone. In its place was silence. The peaceful, beautiful silence of a galaxy that had been given a second chance. On the bridge, no one spoke for a long time. They just stared at the stars, at the normal, ordinary stars that should never have seemed so beautiful. Then Sarintha, the ancient Vethkai observer who had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, did something unexpected. She bowed. "I have watched many species face extinction," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I have seen the great and powerful fall. I have seen ancient wisdom prove useless against the void." She looked at the humans around her, these tired, wounded, grieving creatures who had lost so much. "And I have seen ordinary people do what legends could not. I will remember this. My people will remember this. The galaxy will remember this." 3 months later, Yuki Tanaka sat in a small bar on a station at the edge of human space. She was alone, drinking something strong and staring at nothing. A Vethkai approached her table. It was Sarintha. "May I join you?" Tanaka gestured to the empty chair. "Sure." Sarintha sat down. For a while, they did not speak. The bar was quiet, filled with the soft sounds of distant conversations and clinking glasses. "I have been asked to write a history of the Hollow's destruction," Sarintha finally said. "The Concord wants a complete record. They want to understand how humans succeeded where so many others failed." Tanaka took a drink. "And what will you tell them?" "I do not know." Sarintha's 4 eyes studied the human carefully. "I have been thinking about it for months, trying to find the right words. But I still do not understand." "Understand what?" "Your species. You were facing annihilation. You had no special powers, no ancient wisdom, no technological advantage. The mathematics said you should fail. Sarintha leaned forward. How did you not despair? Tanaka was quiet for a long time. She thought about Jinsu, who had walked into the core with a broken leg and a calm heart. She thought about Morrison and Rias, who had died keeping their ships running until the last moment. She thought about all the volunteers who had known they would probably die, but came anyway. We're human, she finally said. We've always been up against something. The void, the darkness, the knowledge that we're small and mortal and the universe doesn't care about us. She finished her drink and set the glass down. We just got used to it. Sarintha considered this. That is not a satisfying answer for a history book. Tanaka smiled, and for the first time in months, it was a genuine smile. Maybe that's the point. Maybe we're not supposed to make sense. Maybe that's what keeps us going. Outside the bar, the stars continued their eternal dance. Worlds turned. Civilizations built and grew. The galaxy moved on, healed, and in the hearts of every species, a new legend was born. Not of great powers or ancient wisdom, but of ordinary humans who had faced the void and refused to look away. 312 survivors returned from the mission. They went back to their ordinary lives. They became farmers and teachers and engineers again. They raised children and grew old and told stories to their grandchildren, but they never forgot. And in a small apartment on Earth, an old woman named Park Soon-yi kept a medal on her wall. It was the only one ever given, a simple disc of metal with her son's name engraved on it. Visitors would sometimes ask about it. My son saved the galaxy, she would say, her voice filled with quiet pride. He was just a boy who wanted to help pay for my medical treatment. He was nothing special. She would pause, and her eyes would grow distant with memory. But he was everything to me. The galaxy continued to spin. Stars were born and died. Species rose and fell, but the hollow never returned, and the legend of the ordinary humans who defeated it was passed down through generations, across species, across time itself. A reminder that sometimes the greatest heroes were not the ones with power. They were the ones who simply refused to give up.